The Strait of Hormuz must remain closed, says Iran's new Supreme Leader Mojtaba Khamenei. Meanwhile, Iran sets 3 conditions to end the war with the US and Israel. Any resolution must recognize Iran's legitimate rights, war reparations, and guarantee that the country will not face future attacks. Tehran also warns that oil could hit $200 a barrel if the war continues. External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar holds 3 rounds of talks with his Iranian counterpart to secure India's oil route via the Strait of Hormuz, even as one tanker reaches Mumbai. US-owned ships come under attack, exposing the Gulf's exploding maritime crisis. Explosions rocked the heart of Dubai as a suspected drone crashes near the Burj Khalifa. Fires erupt in Bahrain. Drones hit Kuwait and Riyadh as Middle East tensions explode across the region. Trump has reportedly backed an Israel-led killing of Iran's new Supreme Leader Mojtaba Khamenei if Tehran refuses to scrap its nuclear program, suggests a new report. The leader of the opposition in the Lok Sabha, Rahul Gandhi, launches a sharp attack on the centre over the US waiver to India permitting it to buy crude oil from Russia amid the deepening Middle East crisis. He takes a jibe at Petroleum Minister Hardeep Singh Puri by calling him compromised amidst the opposition chanting Jeffrey Epstein's name. Trump launches sweeping trade probes targeting India, China and multiple other countries after the US Supreme Court blocked his tariffs. Trump readies a fresh global tariff blitz. As war panic grips the Gulf and thousands remain stranded, demand for private jets soars, with the super rich coughing up astronomical sums of money to flee the region. Charter flights from Dubai, Muscat and Riyadh now cost upwards of $145,000. Former Jammu and Kashmir Chief Minister Farooq Abdullah survives an assassination attempt as a gunman fires at him at point-blank range at a wedding. The suspect claims he had waited 20 years for that moment. Hello and welcome to the Times of India. You're watching Headlines at 8 with me, Neha Khanna. Our big focus on the show tonight. In his first statement as Iran's new Supreme Leader, Mojtaba Khamenei has said the Strait of Hormuz must remain closed. Just how long will the war in West Asia last? That's the primary question on everyone's mind as tensions escalate across the Middle East. Well, Iran has now listed 3 conditions for ending its ongoing conflict with the United States and Israel. Laying out the terms, Iranian President Masoud Pezeshkian said any resolution must recognize Iran's legitimate rights and guarantee that the country will not face future attacks. In a post on X, Pezeshkian also demanded compensation for damages incurred during the war. He wrote, "Talking to leaders of Russia and Pakistan, I reaffirmed Iran's commitment to peace in the region. The only way to end this war ignited by the Zionist regime and the US is recognizing Iran's legitimate rights, payment of reparations and firm international guarantees against future aggression." Before this offer of truce, the spokesperson for Iran's armed forces had claimed that no port, economic center or location in the Persian Gulf would be beyond Iran's reach if Washington attacked Iranian port facilities. Abolfazi Shekarchi said, "If our ports and docks are threatened, all ports and docks in the region will be our legitimate targets. The armed forces will carry out a heavier operation than what we've done so far if Iranian ports were to come under attack. We call on the countries of the region to expel the Americans from their lands." Iranian forces had already struck commercial vessels and signaled that shipping lanes around the strategically vital Strait of Hormuz would not remain safe if the attacks continued, raising fears of a massive shock to global energy supplies. After strikes from the US and Israel on Iran's vessels and boats, Iran warned the world should be ready for oil at $200 a barrel as its forces hit merchant ships. On Wednesday, 3 vessels were reportedly hit in Gulf waters as Iran's Revolutionary Guard said their forces had fired on ships in the Gulf that had disobeyed their orders. As oil markets swing wildly and global powers debate naval escorts for tankers through the Hormuz Strait, the conflict has already begun sending shockwaves across the world economy. Meanwhile, according to news agency Reuters, Israeli officials in close discussions have acknowledged that there is no certainty that the war against Iran will lead to a collapse of its clerical government, with no sign of an Iranian uprising amid the bombardment. And despite comments by US President Donald Trump that the war may end soon, Israel's assessment is that Washington is not close to calling for an end to the conflict.
A major signal from Iran to end the war comes as the conflict with Israel and the United States enters its 13th day on March 12th. Iranian President Masoud Pezeshkian lists 3 conditions for de-escalation after speaking with the leaders of Russia and Pakistan. In a post on X, Pezeshkian said, "I reaffirmed Iran's commitment to peace in the region. The only way to end this war, ignited by the Zionist regime and US, is recognizing Iran's legitimate rights, payment of reparations, and firm international guarantees against future aggression." Tehran's signaling of a halt in military aggression comes as diplomatic efforts intensify to contain the conflict. Remember, Russia, a close ally of Iran, is maintaining close contact with Iranian leadership and calling for an end to hostilities. On March 10th, Russian President Vladimir Putin had a telephone conversation with US President Donald Trump to discuss proposals for a quick diplomatic end to Iran war. According to Kremlin foreign policy aide Yuri Ushakov, the American president initiated the call to discuss the latest international developments, and the 2 leaders spoke for about an hour. The war began on February 28th, when US and Israel launched a joint preemptive strike on Iran after days of heightened tensions. In the first US-Israeli strike, Iran's supreme leader, Ayatollah Khamenei, was killed along with several high-profile military and political leaders of the Islamic Republic. Iran then retaliated ferociously, targeting US bases in the Middle East and launching long-range missiles at Israel. The region has been on edge ever since. And now the war spreads to the Strait of Hormuz as Iran attacks ships passing through the narrow waterway, crucial for the world economy. The ripple effects are already being witnessed across the globe. Meanwhile, Donald Trump claimed that Iran's military capabilities had been decimated.
And as we take decisive action to stop the threat posed by the terrorist regime in Iran with Operation Epic Fury. Is that a great name? Well, it's only good if you win. You know, you can only do. And we've won. Let me tell you, we've won. You know, you never like to say too early you won. We won. We won the bet. In the first hour, it was over. But we won. But they gave me a list of names at General. Sir, you can pick the name you'd like, sir. I said, the name of what? The name of the attack on Iran, sir. And they gave me like 20 names. And I'm like falling asleep. I didn't like any of them. Then I see Epic Fury. I said, I like that name. I like that name. And I can only say this. They were all prepared. They're very strong. You know, they're going to try and take over the whole Middle East. They were going to knock out Israel. They don't know what the hell hit them, right? They don't know what hit them. They got hit by the American military. They don't know. They say, what the hell is happening? They didn't expect anything like this. But I'm pleased to report that earlier today, the International Energy Agency agreed to coordinate the release of a record 400 million barrels of oil from various national petroleum reserves around the world, which will substantially reduce the oil prices as we end this threat to America and this threat to the world. We don't want to leave early, do we? We got to finish the job, right? Over the past 11 days, our military has virtually destroyed Iran. It's a tough country. Their air force is gone, totally gone. That took the better part of about 3 hours. They no longer have radar. They don't have anti-aircraft equipment. They don't have anything. Their missiles are down 90%. Their drones are down 85%. We're blowing up the factories where they're made left and right, as well as Operation Midnight Hammer, where we totally obliterated Iran's nuclear potential. We obliterated it. They don't have nuclear potential. And then after Midnight Hammer, and then we left, we figured that'll be the end of them for a while. But they started again. That's why we got to finish it, right? We don't want to go back every 2 years. And my administration, as you know better than anybody, is also working to keep the oil flowing. It's flowing all over. We knocked out, they want to drop some mines. Very friendly people, mines, so boats blow up. And we knocked out every hour I have to change because they knock them out so fast. I've never seen anything. Think of it. They knocked out 54 ships in 2 days. And they're real ships. But we knocked out 58 naval ships. We knocked out their Navy, okay? Let's put it that way. But they also knocked out the mine layers. They call them mine layers. They put mines in the water. Lovely job. Isn't that nice? Blow up ships.
External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar has spoken to his Iranian counterpart 3 times in the last few days. The most recent conversation was on maritime, shipping and security, a critical issue given global energy supply volatility as a result of US-Israel attacks on Iran and pressure on the Strait of Hormuz. The External Affairs Ministry made these remarks shortly after a Liberia-flagged tanker carrying crude oil from Saudi Arabia docked at Mumbai to become the first vessel to navigate the Hormuz and reach India. According to the Ministry of External Affairs, around 9,000 Indian nationals, including students, seafarers, business people and pilgrims, are currently in Iran. Many have already returned after government advisories were issued, while others have been shifted to safer locations within Iran as tensions escalate. On Monday, Jaishankar told Parliament dialogue and diplomacy are the only means of resolving the conflict in the Middle East and that the Indian government was closely monitoring developments in the region that is home to millions of Indians. So far, 2 Indians have died in the fighting in Iran and the wider Middle East region. A third has been reported missing. A US-owned tanker was attacked near Basra in Iraq, killing 1 Indian crew member and forcing the evacuation of 15 others. Another vessel was also struck as Iranian forces claimed responsibility for explosive attacks on ships in the Persian Gulf. With multiple commercial vessels hit by mysterious projectiles and naval tensions rising across the region, the world's most crucial energy corridor is rapidly turning into one of the most dangerous flashpoints on the planet. Over 1,300 people have been killed in Iran alone due to the fighting, which has also impacted, as we said, the world's oil supply. The Strait of Hormuz, over which Iran has geographical control and has imposed a military blockade, ships 1/5 of the global supply, resulting in crude prices soaring. The Indian government has, though, played down concerns of an energy supply crisis in the country, insisting it has sufficient petroleum and gas stocks to ride out the crisis.
So let me first address your part. External Affairs Minister and Foreign Minister of Iran have had 3 conversations in the recent days. The last one discussed issues pertaining to safety of shipping and India's energy security. Beyond that, it would be premature for me to say anything. पिछले कुछ दिनों में विदेश मंत्री
India has received a major relief shipment at a time of rising tensions in West Asia. A crude oil tanker has successfully reached Mumbai after crossing the highly volatile Strait of Hormuz. This is the first India-bound oil vessel to safely transit the strategic waterway since the war involving the United States and Israel against Iran began. The tanker's arrival comes at a critical moment for India's energy security. The ship, named Shen Long, is a Liberia-flagged Suez-Max tanker carrying crude oil from Saudi Arabia. It loaded the cargo at Ras Tanura port and began its journey toward India in early March. Maritime tracking data shows that the vessel entered the Strait of Hormuz on March 8. This narrow sea channel connects the Persian Gulf with the Arabian Sea. It is one of the most important energy routes in the world. Nearly 1/5 of the world's crude oil passes through the Strait of Hormuz. For India, the route is even more critical because a large share of its oil imports travels through this corridor. But the situation in the region has become extremely tense. Since the conflict involving the United States, Israel and Iran escalated, maritime traffic through the Strait of Hormuz has sharply declined. Several commercial ships have avoided the route, insurance costs have surged, and global oil markets have reacted with concern. Iran has also warned that oil shipments passing through the strait could face risks. There have been reports of merchant vessels being targeted or threatened. This has made the waterway one of the most dangerous maritime zones in the world at the moment. Against this backdrop, the safe arrival of the tanker Shen Long is significant. According to port officials, the vessel reached the Mumbai port on Wednesday afternoon. By evening, it was berthed at Jawahar Dweep, one of the key oil terminals of the port. The tanker is carrying more than 135,000 metric tons of crude oil. The cargo will now be discharged and transported to refineries in Mahul, located in eastern Mumbai. The unloading process is expected to take around 36 hours. The vessel has a multinational crew on board. There are 29 sailors from India, Pakistan and the Philippines. The captain of the ship is an Indian national, Sukhshant Singh Sandhu. The journey through the Strait of Hormuz, however, was far from routine. At one point during the transit, the tanker reportedly went dark. This means its automatic identification system or AIS was switched off. Ships sometimes do this in conflict zones to avoid detection or tracking. After navigating the risky stretch, the tanker later reappeared on global tracking databases. Its safe arrival is being seen as a small but important boost for India's energy security. India is the world's third largest consumer of crude oil. More than half of its oil and gas supplies move through the Strait of Hormuz. Any prolonged disruption could create serious challenges for the country's economy. Even now, the situation remains fragile. India is closely watching the situation around the Strait of Hormuz. Reports had suggested that Iran had quietly allowed India-flagged tankers to pass through the strategic waterway, but Tehran has now dismissed those claims. Reports claim that Iran had offered special passage to India-flagged tankers after talks between India's External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar and Iran's Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi. According to those reports, two Indian tankers, Pushpak and Parimal, were able to move through the Strait of Hormuz safely. At the same time, several Western-linked ships were said to be facing restrictions. External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar has already spoken multiple times with his Iranian counterpart Abbas Araghchi since the crisis began. Their latest phone conversation focused on the rapidly changing security situation in the region. According to Iran's foreign ministry, the discussion also covered the safety of shipping in the Persian Gulf and traffic through the Strait of Hormuz. Tehran argued that the current insecurity in the region is a result of what it called destabilizing actions by the United States and Israel.
Explosions rocked the heart of Dubai today as a suspected drone crashed into the Al Bada neighborhood, sending plumes of smoke into the skyline. not far from the towering Burj Khalifa. Authorities in Dubai confirmed what they described as a minor drone incident, saying emergency teams rushed to the site and no injuries were reported. Residents reported hearing loud blasts across the downtown district as air defenses were activated, underscoring how the widening war in the Gulf is now spilling dangerously close to one of the world's most important financial hubs. Israel's plan to eliminate Iran's newly appointed supreme leader Mojtaba Khamenei if Tehran refuses to abandon its nuclear ambitions. According to reports citing US officials, Washington has demanded that Iran dismantle its nuclear program or face harsher consequences, including the possibility of a targeted strike against its new leader. Officials say any such operation could be carried out by Israel, mirroring the airstrikes that killed Mojtaba's father, Ali Khamenei, at the start of the war. Trump has openly criticized Tehran's decision to elevate Mojtaba, saying he was not happy with the choice and warning that the new leader would not be able to live in peace if Iran continues its confrontation with the United States. The American president had suggested earlier that the US should have a role in determining Iran's next leadership, arguing that replacing one hardline cleric with another would only prolong the conflict. Behind the scenes, Mojtaba, long described as the power broker inside his father's inner circle, suddenly emerged from the shadows to inherit power amid one of the most dangerous crises in Iran's modern history. The succession itself has been somewhat controversial inside Iran. Reports indicate that the late Ali Khamenei had explicitly warned in his will against his son becoming the country's next supreme leader. Yet, powerful factions within the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps reportedly pushed Mojtaba into the role despite those reservations. A new global trade storm has erupted as the Trump administration has launched sweeping investigations into what it calls unfair trade practices by 16 major trading partners of the US, including India, China and Bangladesh. The probes, initiated under Section 301 of the Trade Act of 1974, could pave the way for a fresh wave of tariffs targeting some of the world's biggest economies. Officials say the move is designed to restore Washington's tariff leverage after the US Supreme Court struck down Trump's earlier global tariffs as illegal last month. The investigation will scrutinize a wide network of economies accused of creating structural excess capacity in manufacturing and distorting global markets. Apart from India and China, the probe covers the European Union, Japan, South Korea, Mexico and a string of Asian exporters including Vietnam, Thailand, Malaysia and Indonesia. US Trade Representative Jameson Greer has warned that the findings could trigger sweeping tariffs as early as this summer as part of a broader strategy to slash America's trade deficit and shield US factories from what Washington calls unfair competition. At the same time, the White House has signaled an even broader crackdown, launching another probe targeting imports allegedly produced through forced labor across more than 60 countries. With temporary tariffs set to expire in July, Trump's officials say the administration is preparing to unleash new trade weapons, warning that Washington could find a way to confront unfair practices and reshape the global trading order. Demand for private charter flights out of the Middle East has surged since the beginning of the US-Israeli conflict with Iran, with those who can afford it paying astronomical prices to leave the region. The war, which began on the 28th of February, has triggered the biggest disruption to air travel across the Gulf region since the COVID-19 pandemic, with commercial airline operations severely disrupted by airspace closures due to ongoing missile strikes and drone attacks. Those in the business of private jets say demand for charter jets has increased materially in recent days as commercial airline schedules across parts of the region have become limited or unreliable. Tens of thousands of travelers have been stranded, and although some airlines are now reopening a limited number of routes, those with extremely deep pockets have found a way to circumvent the chaos, chartering a private jet. Private jet companies say they are receiving requests from ultra-high net worth families, multinational corporations, relocating senior executives and larger groups such as sports teams and touring productions that still need to move together. According to private charter firm Shah Aviation, there are normally around 10 to 15 private jet flights from the Omani capital Muscat, Dubai and the Saudi capital Riyadh on a normal day. But this spiked to almost 100 last week. Increased demand, the limited number of aircraft available and higher insurance costs have all contributed to higher than normal prices, as has the fact that planes return to the region empty in the vast majority of cases, which means clients pay for both legs of the journey. One flight saw a group of 12 people and their dog fly from Muscat to Istanbul in Turkey, a 5-hour journey for $145,000. The same flight would have cost around $60,000 before the conflict. That's a whopping 142% increase. Muscat and Riyadh were the preferred departure airports at the start of the conflict as the airspace and flight corridors were more predictable. But now Dubai has become more popular as the emirate is home to many people who are trying to leave the region. However, private charters cannot significantly reduce travel disruption in the Middle East, both because of the unaffordable costs and due to a lack of capacity. There are currently tens of thousands of people trying to leave the region, and various governments from around the world are working to provide repatriation flights after commercial airline operations were severely disrupted by the ongoing conflict. That's all the time we have on this edition of Headlines at 8. Thanks for watching. Do join us again at the same time tomorrow. Bye for now.